What the fuck is going on? It's Jason Van Jason back for episode 8 of Bitch Faggot Radio. Welcome back, bitch faggots. If this is your first time listening, you may want to go back to number 1. Why? I don't know. So you have some context. Context is important. It's a very interesting topic. One I should have really covered context earlier, because there are going to be some people who have no idea what the word context means, so I guess I should have went through that earlier in the series. Anyways, before we get started, my Twitter at Jason Van Jason. If you have any questions, you can send me an email to jvjradio@protonmail.com, and I will address your questions directly on the show. And so far, there haven't been any questions. I just posted this to my blog under a week ago, so I'm not that surprised. But anyways, if you'd like to find my blog, you can go to Jason Van Jason's Amazon Author Central page via Google, or the link in the description below in the YouTube video. Obviously, there's some products you can buy for 99 cents on my Amazon Author Central page. You can check those out as well. And my YouTube channel, I'm not even sure what the name of it is, but again, you can just go to my blog and find the link to the video there. So, the blog's been slowing down a little bit. I think I did one installment of the fantasy story I'm writing in like the past week or two. It's been a fairly busy week for me, which is good. The less time I have for writing just means making a little more money, which is always a good thing, right? Money is and always will be a hot topic in any life. And honestly, for the amount that money's talked about, it's not really talked about enough. But before we talk about money, let's talk about money. When you do a Google search of Jason Van Jason, you may come up with another name, such as Jason Van something that's not Jason. And you need to know that every single one of those people with the name Jason Van, they're just a bunch of imposters. Alright, you need to let them know that. If you're a true fan of the show, you just need to let them know that. And you can do that a number of ways, but the most preferable way would just be kind of a DM on Twitter, maybe. Just kind of let them know, like, hey, you're kind of a faggot. Just don't call him a faggot. Just say, or don't call her, or don't call whoever that person might be that has that name, Jason Van. You just let them know, hey, don't be a faggot. Change your name. Alright? It is what it is. Even if it's their real name. You know, I'm using a fake name, so they can use a fake name too. Like, what the fuck? Right? What the fuck? What the fuck? Anyways, it is Saturday. It is a beautiful day on Saturday. Like, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Not a cloud in the sky. The rain clouds have been descending for the past couple days now, so it's a really nice break from the traditional getting rained on. But I can't complain. We just had fucking, I think, 7 months of winter, so anything's better than that. Oh, fuck. You fucking people who don't experience winter, you have no fucking clue. You have no fucking clue how good you have it. Not a fucking even a shred of an idea. We have weather out here that, 6 months of the year can potentially kill you. For fuck's sakes. Stepping outside into the cold, you can die. And yet, there's people, they don't experience that at all. They just step outside and, oh, it's sunny all year round. Must be nice. But I wonder if it is nice to just always have that sunny day. Because, the winter, it makes us appreciate summer so much more. when we go through that hard time, when the sun does come, it is just fucking glorious. It's even glorious in the winter when the sun comes up. It's especially glorious, but in the summer when there's no snow on the ground, there's no wind, there's no rain, there's not a cloud in the sky, it's just a beautiful day. Fuck, that is that is magic. And today is a magical summer day in Edmonton, Alberta. I'll tell you that right fucking now. So it's the May long weekend. I'm supposed to go on a fishing trip tomorrow, but I'm not too sure if that's gonna be happening. I don't really want to go on a fishing trip. I don't really want to go get my fishing license. So I don't think I will. Plus, it's probably gonna rain. You know, the second you actually make plans and go out and do something, you know, life's just gonna throw you a curveball. It always does. And I'm not saying you should avoid those curveballs. I'm just saying, if you're gonna pay money, you better be willing to catch them. And money, yeah, you know, money is such a pervasive context. And for those who kind of lack an understanding of what context actually is really just the idea, I suppose, of looking at the world in the view of somebody else's shoes. So you could step into a banker's shoes and see the context of the banker's life, or you could step into a construction worker's shoes or a writer's shoes and look at the context of their life. Context is really a matter of perspective. More so like with writing, obviously, but the context of our perspectives is always changing because we're always changing as people. A large amount of people identify themselves through stereotypes. They'll say, I'm like a nerd, or I'm like a jock, or I'm like a this or that. You know, we try and liken ourselves down to comparable things in each other's lives. We try and have our context be known without actually saying it. We try to make people understand without providing any understanding. And then we just expect people to understand, and we get mad when people don't. But money is the greatest context of the most pervasive context in all our lives. It's because we all deal with money. Money is driving all of our lives. Money is the lifeblood of all of our lives. Without money, I don't want to say we don't have a life, but we don't have a very good one, that's for sure. And not to say that you need money to live a good life, but in this day and age, you kind of do. I mean, you don't, but it sure helps a lot. And to a point, having more than enough money doesn't help. We all know the examples of the people who got way too much money and fucked it all up. That's a strange thing too, when you have someone who just has so much and they can't make it last half as long as someone with half as much, right? It's really speaks to the lifestyle that we can lead. You know, the lifestyle that we're all embracing today is largely dependent upon money. Sometimes it's not, but a lot of time it is. More times than not, it is. And how we get that money and how much money we get really defines that experience because of it. We allow that experience to be defined by money. And money is a sacred thing in our society. We don't just give our money to anyone, or at least most of us don't. I guess some of us fucking do, but even then, that's a sacred ritual within itself, giving money to somebody you don't fucking know, right? And there's always arguments about money going on. There's always talks about money going on. It's almost as if we can't say enough about money, and it's really true. We can't. We can never know enough about money. We can never know how to manipulate how we use our money to make it go farther. There's always better ways. Until you speak with somebody who's the best, obviously. And then you have the best way. But there's always a new best way coming out. There's always a smarter way to do things. And a lot of people fall behind. You know, just as there's some people who don't even use cell phones. You know, they say, the cell phones are too advanced for me. You know, there's people who don't keep up with the way we make money and don't change the way they spend money. Money really provided me with a way to look at life in a similar way to how everyone else kind of looks at their life, contextually. And often we compare ourselves to others based on money. We don't really want to, but we have a competitive spirit just as human beings, and so I don't really know if we can fully say, I don't compare myself to anyone. I don't think you can. I think there's too much of our base nature involved in competition to even suggest that. And so we're left comparing ourselves to people who essentially have money. And we're left to look up at the people who make lots of money, and we're left to idolize them. And I don't need to say the names that have a lot of money. We all know the names, right? That's one of the things that really bothers me is the fact that you don't think I know to an extent who has a lot of money, or more importantly, you think that I care to an extent, which I do. Obviously, as I said, you know, we try and deny this competitive human spirit that all of us have, and some of us successfully deny it. But for how long? It's not something you can deny forever. And so we're always, our vision is always being shifted towards the people who have a lot of money. We always want to live like the people who have a lot of money. We always want to live lives of luxury without being aware of how that person actually lived to get to that luxurious place. Often, the people that were celebrated lived very poorly in the beginning. And people don't want to celebrate that. They want to celebrate the act of having a lot of money, not the act of actually going through the process of obtaining the money. And that's always been an interesting thing. The human person doesn't want to put in the work. They just want to reap the benefit. Always. Always. Even when you run into a lot of money, suddenly you'll run into people mysteriously that you haven't seen in 20 fucking years, but, you know, they know you got money. That's why they're running into you. And so it leaves us to question the motivations of a lot of people around us. Money. That's really what it does. We learn to see that money is pretty much the biggest motivator in our lives. Combined, like the combined perspective of the human race, money is up there with all our basic needs. Money provides all our basic needs, so why wouldn't it be? And money doesn't, I shouldn't say money provides all of our basic needs. It doesn't. We can provide those ourselves, but most of us don't have the skills to do so, and so that's why we have money, to supplement that lack of skill. And that's kind of a funny statement, that we use money to supplement our lack of knowledge and skills. But because we can continue to obtain money, we really don't need to develop those said skills that we're paying for. We can just pay for them again, right? And some skills are worth having. Like, for example, knowing how to change the oil on your car can save you, $60 every couple of months, or depending on how long you drive, maybe, twice a month. I don't know. That's the context of your life. You know, if you're doing 2 oil changes a month and you're spending $60 on each one, that's a lot of money every year that you could be saving just by doing it yourself, right? And so the reason we end up obtaining these skills then is to not be able to do it ourselves, but to save the money. We don't want to do it ourselves. We'd rather spend money on it unless we can't. Then we want to do it ourselves, and suddenly we have a longing for these skills that we don't have. So we don't have to pay for someone else's skills. And paying for someone else's skills, that's really what society is just having access to somebody's skills that you normally wouldn't without, obviously, money. You know, money becomes a community more so than socially. We have now financial communities. You know, the social community has really been erased. There is no social community when you have no money. You can really only socialize with other people who have no money to an extent. And when I mean money, I mean value attached to that. So, I mean, you can have no money but own your own house, right? That's, but there's always this idea of, like, classes, that money is creating classes of people. And there's always been classes in society, any society at all. There's always been classes. Classes have always existed. And the reason people want to abolish classes today is because this idea of fair. This idea that everything should be fair. That life is fair. Let me ask you something. Grown adults listening to this, how many of you think life is fair? Or that life at any point was engineered to be fair? Fairness, if you have any implication in your mind at all of human nature and the competitiveness of human nature, you would understand fairness doesn't really exist. And more so, it's more, if it does exist, it exists as more of a word than an actual function in our society. Fair is only defined by how much money we've spent on something. You know, if I've spent more money than you, then wouldn't it be fair for me to have it before you? That's how we kind of define fairness. Even time-wise, I could say, hey, well, I spent more time than you on this, and yet you have this before I do. Whatever this is, it could be, could be a skill. A professional skill that you're trying to develop, and someone develops it in less time than you do. Is that fair? Are we modulating that, whether that's fair or not? If I see someone with lots of money and I have no money, is that inherently fair all of a sudden? Are we thinking about fair at that point? No, of course not. Because the context of fair does not take into account what I've done with my opportunities and what that person has done with their opportunities. Fair doesn't really take those two things into account. And so when we have knowledge that someone has squandered an opportunity that someone else hasn't, and that opportunity boils down to the reason why somebody has money and somebody doesn't, we no longer look at that as fair. We look at that as, I guess, competition, right? Some of us compete better than others. And so, fairness is really a function of competition. Fairness is almost like a veil for those who know the system is unfair to work behind. To say, oh no, everything's fair. Then you point at the guy with so much money and say, well, why is he getting in first? Well, it's only fair. There's two contexts of the word fair. There's, okay, everyone should have equal chance, and there's, okay, well, this guy paid more, so, well, how did he have the ability to get more? We don't think about, okay, well, how did this guy get so much money? Did he get it in a fair way? We're not concerned with that. All we're concerned with is the fact that this person has money, and because they have money, their situation is more fairer than ours. There's more fairness directed towards that person who has more money. You understand? Things are more fair. And you didn't think that a contest existed of less fair or more fair, did you? But it does. There's more fair and there's less fair. And some of us live fairer lives than others. Some of us deal with fairness on a regular basis. Maybe you're a police officer. You know that the law is only fair to a certain extent, and that extent is the extent to which you wish to enforce it. Right? I mean, the law is black and white, but what's not black and white are the people enforcing it. And so, immediately we have fairness being doled out pretty liberally. There's a color of people with a color of skin that believe that the police deal with them unfairly all the time. And I can't speak to that because obviously I'm not of that skin color. And even if I was, I mean, for me to sit here and be like, oh, it indefinitely doesn't happen, or oh, it indefinitely does happen, I can't say either of those because I don't have enough information to, and neither do any of you. But if I did have enough information to conclusively say that, I would be saying it in a context of fairness to say, well, we're not treated like these people are treated, right? That's really what they're saying. When they say, oh, we're not treated fairly, they're saying we're not treated like they're being treated. And that's what a lot of ethnic conflict is revolving around. Not the idea of fairness, but the idea of comparison. The idea of, I'm comparing myself to this guy and this doesn't look the same. You know, and so we're expecting there to be fairness for everyone of every race, of every color, but there's no fairness in the rest of life, so why would there be fairness there? You know what I mean? People think it's you know, it's a socially fair world where some guy who's born rich and looks like an Adonis is gonna be, you know, that field is going to be leveled out for the poor guy who looks like a nerd who never has any money and never will. You know, we always have this idea of fairness, that the world is going to collapse on itself to provide a level of fairness for each individual. And although it may happen, you know, through a natural way, there's no forced way that fairness is really enforced by nature, other than survival of the fittest, obviously, which is wholly fair for the survivors. And that's the thing. Life is only fair for the people who survive it. And so, if you're thinking about fairness, understand that before fairness comes survival. Always. Always. And that's an idea that a lot of people forget. That survival is way more important than the world being fair. And the way some people survive is going to look a lot different than the way other people survive. Some people can't survive if they don't have $1 billion. Others can't survive if they don't have $1, and others just can't survive with money, period. Their whole life has to be devoid of a life without money. I've been there. I've been in a place where if I get any money, it immediately goes to drugs. I've been there. I know why I was there. All of you that have been there, you might not know why you're there, but you know you were there. You know how you got there. Wasn't a tough thing. In fact, all you have to do is just not manage the situation, which is very easy. Management of any financial situation is always very difficult unless that's all you've done is manage financially. Then it's easy. Again, coming back to context and perspective, we all have this idea that there should be a certain fairness involved in survival. That you and me should be surviving the same way. That me and you are the same animals, so we should survive the same way. That's only fair. But what kind of complex does that work when we're putting the label of fairness on survival? If we now, for example, if nature now held sanctioned fights for survival of the fittest, it's a wolf and a porcupine, and then they're both gonna fight, and the wolf is gonna eat the porcupine, or the porcupine gets to live and the wolf dies. We're gonna have a sanctioned fight between survival of the fittest because it's only fair. That doesn't happen. There's no fairness in survival. It's just survival. That's survival. The word survival actually implies a complete dissolution of fairness. A complete lack of fairness is what survival implies, that there isn't going to be any fairness. There's just going to be what's there and what's not at the end of the day. And yet we have this strange idea that these two very opposite contexts, survival and fair, that these two things are kind of the same thing, and they're not. Survival to us in Canada is, healthcare, is having a job, is having a family, is not having my family being killed and shit, and being able to have children. But survival in third world countries looks minuscule in compared to survival here. It's not the same thing, and we can't equate it as the same thing. We don't say that's surviving over there. When someone is literally eating mud because they have no food, we're not looking at that as survival, but that's really what it is. And suddenly we don't want to talk about fairness and survival when we're compared to a third world country, right? All of a sudden we don't want to talk about that anymore. And we only want to mention fairness when there's a benefit being doled out, not when there's a benefit being taken away. Like if somebody's shouting at me, "Hey, that's not fair," and I'm getting some sort of benefit, I'm not going to agree with that person and say, "Oh yeah, that's right, it's not fair. Let me just put this down so you can have it." I'm going to say, "Fuck you, see you later." That's going to be the end of it. And I do that because I think I'm surviving by doing that. I think I need that for survival, when in reality I really don't. And that's the other thing, is when we talk about instilling fairness in people, we have to understand that for some people, survival looks like fair. And for some people, fair looks like survival. So for some people, the only thing they want is to live a fair life. But they're not going to, and they know they're not going to, so they don't want to live at all. For some people, for me, I guess I should start talking about some people, start talking about me. Like I already kind of shared my perspective, I think that fair and survival are two very different things, and I think that people have this idea that they need a lot more for survival here than they actually do. We have this idea that, for example, I need coffee to survive. That if I don't have coffee, I can't survive. And to a point, I guess, what we should be saying to a point is, it's not fair that I don't have coffee because someone else is getting coffee. You see that comparison? That's like, this comparison is crazy. That's like, again, going back to the porcupine and the wolf. This wolf, there's two porcupines, and the wolf kills one porcupine, and then the other porcupine survives. Is the dead porcupine going, hey, it's not fair that I didn't survive? No, it doesn't have the chance to. And just the fact alone that we have the chance to say, hey, I need this to survive, we forget about the blessing that's attached to that. We forget about the mere fact that we have the opportunity to complain that we're not surviving. Or even the opportunity to remain in the competition and say, hey, that's not fair. And to be honest, in an actual competition, I've never heard someone say, hey, that's not fair. I never have. I've always watched someone gracefully win and gracefully lose, or maybe they confidently win and throw their hands in the air and go, fuck you, I'm the greatest, and or maybe the person cries and loses, but I've never actually seen someone in a competition raise their hand and go, hey, that's not fair, what happened? I don't think I've ever seen that before. And that's because we know that in fairness, there's winners and losers. Just like survival, we know for a fact in survival, there's winners and there's losers. And because we don't hear about the people who lose when it comes to survival, we really don't want to hear about the people that lose when it comes to fairness. We have this idea that fair and survival are almost the same thing. That the world needs to be fair. And I have a question for you. Why does the world need to be fair? Why does the world need to be fair? Why would survival be fair? Survival would not be survival if it wasn't fair. This world would not be this world if it was fair. It would be something else. This world is what it is because it's not fair, not because it is. And this illusion of the fact that there's fairness in survival, that it's only fair that if he survives, I survive too. like that's ridiculous. Like, going back to the two porcupines, if the porcupine who's eventually gonna die says, "Hey, it's only fair that if he survives, I survive. So you either gotta kill both of us, or take both of us, or leave both of us be." But what about the rest of the porcupines? If the wolf kills one porcupine, does it have to kill every porcupine so that the world's fair now? Is the wolf going to go through the effort of killing every porcupine to make sure that the world is fair? Does the wolf care enough to have the world be fair? No. The wolf only cares until it's rewarded by a meal, and then it stops. And it eats, and it goes, that was fucking delicious. And during that time, there's porcupines running around that are surviving. But to that one porcupine, that's not very fair. But again, why am I concerned with fairness when the thing is dead? Suddenly the world forgets about the dead porcupine and moves on to the 100 that are alive, right? That are still alive. Fairness and survival and money, it all seems connected, but it's not. Survival and money is something that isn't talked about very often because a lot of people think you don't need money to survive. And I don't think you need money to survive, but you do need money to keep things fair. And the question, why do things need to be fair, is a question that needs to be asked. Everyone is so wrapped up in the word fair as soon as it comes up that they don't even want to approach it or talk about it. No one wants to sit here and talk like I am and say, why does the world need to be fair? The world's going to have its winners and it's going to have its losers, just like survival. And the reason why is because we have this understanding that if something survives, the chances are it's going to keep surviving. And if something wins, chances are it's going to keep winning. Not always, but especially when you got lots of money on your side after making a big win or something, all of a sudden your chances of winning again go up dramatically. And so we have this thing where we think that the money that these unfair people are hoarding is eventually going to change hands, and we don't understand that it's not, because that would completely defeat the purpose of survival, not fairness. And we have to understand that survival needs to be fulfilled before fairness can begin to prosper. We need to understand that there's people who genuinely believe they need all the money in the world to survive. Not for the world to be fair, but for them to just survive. So they're not concerned with how fair the world is. They're just concerned with surviving. And once someone has that mentality, they drive all the other competitors to adopt that mentality as well. And so really, when we talk about the essence of survival, we never really leave it. At no point do we have the human capacity to look beyond survival into fairness. In reality, fairness doesn't exist because, as I said, we never move on from survival to consider fairness. At all points, our lives are in jeopardy. At this very moment, a fucking meteor could just crash into this earth, or some guy could just run up and kill me, Our lives are fragile, and we know that. We're aware of just how flimsy survival can be, and so the idea that we can never have enough is a true one, and it's one that's propagated by survival itself. How can we look past survival when that's all that we're trying to do is just survive? Contextually, all we're trying to do is survive. Because as I said, for some people, survival means $1. For others, survival means $1 billion. We're all surviving in different ways, and this idea that we can equate one human being's survival to every human being that exists, it's a really nice and friendly and fluffy and colorful idea, but when it comes time to implementation, we have to understand that by using that idea of fairness, we're actually jeopardizing some people's survival. And when we're jeopardizing somebody's survival, we're no longer doing it for the sake of fairness. We're doing it for the sake of our own survival, right? When we're now infringing on the survival of someone else, we're now in war. When we have two things just trying to survive each other's assaults, that's war. And so the reason we can't have fairness in this world is because survival never ends. And the second we think we can scale back some other entity's ability to survive to bolster our own, we're not realizing that we're jeopardizing that thing's survival for our own. We are entering war with whatever we're trying to jeopardize to increase our own ability to survive. And yeah, some people can live a lesser life than what they want to, right? But I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that want to survive. As I already mentioned, the essence of the competition of the human spirit. There is, competition is originally a concept born of survival, right? Not of fairness, but of survival. And so, yeah, fairness doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is survival. And by surviving, what we're really doing is just enhancing our own lives. And the reason we're enhancing our lives is to survive better. And if that means that we're cutting off another individual's ability to survive, then if it means our own survival, then I guess it's survival of the fittest, isn't it? And so people talk about how, it's survival of the fittest in the animal kingdom. Did you forget that we're animals? We're fucking animals. We might be we might be intelligent, we might be able to drive, we might be able to drink coffee and make coffee and do all sorts of other shit, but we're still animals. So why, we're above survival now? And we're into fairness? I don't think so. I don't think we ever will be, because our minds can't really provide a context of beyond our own survival. And if it does provide a context for somebody's survival other than our own, then it's really just pulling at our guilt strings, right? We talked about guilt. Guilt is a function of survival. Guilt is, okay, well, I can't survive. Well, I'm just going to go die then. That's, yeah. And we can't be just giving up. We can't just be understanding or think we understand that fairness is in this world, because it's not. For fairness to prosper, we all have to be surviving equally. And we're not. And we're not ever going to all survive equally. That's not going to happen. Because that doesn't happen in nature. You understand? Survival is a flawed system. It doesn't allow for everything to survive equally. Survival allows the strongest thing to survive and the weakest to just die and fuel the strongest. And in essence, the weakest become the strongest in that sense, if you want to think about it that way. The weakest really do become a function of the strongest. And survival is kind of left to the things in the middle. Because the things on the bottom are going to die and the things at the top are going to live. That's just what it is. So, I don't know if this world is fair. In fact, I know for a fact it's not, but maybe to you it is, because I don't know your context. The context that I do know, though, is that we're all trying to survive. And at no point are none of us trying to go against our basic instincts and not survive. Some of us might kill ourselves or something like this, take our own lives. But in the context of survival, we all want to survive. We all want a peace. But some of us don't want to work for that peace. And to those people, I would say, how are you surviving if you're not working for that peace? Not is it fair? I'm not concerned with fairness. I'm concerned with survival. And when my concern of survival comes up, you really have to understand, more than anything, I'm concerned with my survival and my family's survival. I'm not concerned with your survival. Really not. I'm concerned with your survival as it pertains to mine, right? If you can help me survive easier, then I'm pertaining to your survival as well as mine. But if you're just gonna make my survival harder, why would I be worried about your survival? Do you understand? And so the entities that end up making the bigger entity's survival easier, they end up surviving. And the entities that make the bigger entity's survival harder, they end up dying. Not because they're weak, but because they've gotten in the way of the strong. You don't have to be weak to get taken out by the strong. That's something that a lot of people know, and some people have forgotten, and others live by. That you don't need to be weak to lose to the strong. You don't. Most of the time, people aren't. People aren't weak, but they lose to the strong all the same. And that's what it is. That's some life fucking... That's some life thinking. Not some life... I was going to say some life advice, but it's not really advice. We're all aware of what survival is, and some of us are aware of what fairness is, and others need a fucking crash course in fairness, but the fact remains that the world ain't fair, and if it was, it'd look a lot different than this. Maybe we wouldn't want to look at fair if that's what the world truly was. You know, fair would be everyone gets cancer and dies. Fair would be... fair is really just a function of survival. So how can fairness come before survival when fairness is a function of certain people who aren't surviving on their own, allowing them to survive? That's what fairness is. Fairness is providing for the people who can't survive on their own. That's what fair is. So for the people who can survive on their own, but they just don't, it's not fair for you to survive. Do you get that? If you can survive, but you're just choosing not to, but you're still surviving, you've broken the system of survival. And that needs to end. The people who aren't working for their survival but are surviving need to die. Because that's what this system that we're born of is. And that's fucked up, but that's a really fucked up thing to say. It is. I understand that is. And you know why it's fucked up? Is because it's not fair. So even though this world isn't fair, I'm expected to be fair. And if I can be fair in a world that isn't fair, can't I impact this world a little bit to be more fair? No, I can't. Because survival is fair. Survival is fair. If you aren't strong enough to survive and you don't, that's fair. If you're strong enough to survive and you do, that's fair. And how much more fair can we make it? Can we make it than nature? You know, we want to prolong life. We want to keep life going. We want to create life with this staple that, okay, I'm going to create life, but only if it's fair. You know, no one wants to create life to have their life die. But that's survival. It's fucked up. And even though I say survival is fair and fairness is a function of survival, people want to retract away from that focus of survival and focus on fair. And the truth is that it's only fair that we all rely on each other. And when someone takes from all of us and then says, oh no, I can't help you after all we've done is help them. That's not fair. There needs to be like a law against that or something. Because it has bred this condition where all we do is claim fairness until we're in a position of benefit, and then we just turn around and say, oh no, this is fair. Why wouldn't we? It's a survival. Why wouldn't we? When all you're concerned with is survival, how can you implement fairness? You can't. Anyways, I've rambled on for long enough here. We're at 50 minutes. Boy, this time goes by fast when I'm just sitting here talking to myself like a fucking nut. Anyways, my name is Jason Van Jason. This is Bitch Faggot Radio. If you'd like to get a hold of the show and have your question answered on the show, you can do so at jvjradio@protonmail.com. The link for my Amazon Author Central page, as well as the email that I just said, is in the description below in the YouTube video, because you're probably seeing this on my blog. So, you know how to navigate. I'm not going to fucking explain how to navigate YouTube. I shouldn't have to. It's only fair. If I know how, you should too. Fucking bitch faggot. It's only fair that I get to say bitch faggot. Anyways, yeah, so Twitter at Jason Van Jason. If you want to find my blog, you can go to my Amazon Author Central page, which is Jason Van Jason. If you see any other Jason Vans, make sure and let them know that they're homo dick sucking cunt fucking nigger faggots. And yeah, so I love all of you. May the devil touch your life, and may God bless you, and may you find a balance in between those two forces that drives you to a good place or a bad place. And I hope you find an opportunity to grow in either of that place and become something more than you are today. That would be cool. Because, let me tell you, we're all just trying to survive out here, and if you could just give a little bit more than the guy next to you, shit, I'm sure it'll go to some corporation's bank account. Because the strong survive, don't they? Yeah, that's the dream, baby. Survival of the fittest. Anyways, I love you all. I am the most unfit of you all, and yet here I am. That right there should tell you life ain't fair, mofo. It just fucking ain't. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.